Welcome to class 7th. Let's start with social science subjects from history, our past, part 2. Let me ask you very simple question. What is the date today? Obviously, all of you knows the answer. And here I would like to give stress on the year 2020. It means 2000 years has passed. Don't worry, we are not going to study about the whole 2000 years, but half of it. Let me ask you next question. Do you know in which age or period you are living? You have to tell the age or the period as per history base or historical background. What is the age? So obviously the answer is modern age. Next question. Do you remember about which age or period or year you learned history in class 6th? Now most of you must be thinking about the ancient, important, famous rulers. You may think of the great Ashoka, you may think of Samudragupta and many more. If you remember, we read about the famous ruler, that is Harshavardhana. He ruled from 606 to 647 CE. If you remember the best known Chalukya ruler, that is Pulkeshin II, he ruled from 609 to 642 CE. So obviously you will come to know we read something around 700 AD and about ancient age. After going through these two periods, that is modern and ancient period, we may think of the changes in both the ages. So do you find any changes in both the periods? Obviously this age is technological driven. This is also known as digital age. So you may think of technology. You may think of other points such as transport, trade, people, etc. Answers may vary from pupil to pupil. So let's start our lesson. The name of the lesson is Tracing Changes Through 1,000 Years. Here I think you must be knowing about, or you know, we are talking about 1,000 years. That is between 700 to 1750. This age is known as medieval period or age. Now in this lesson we are going to find changes in maps, terminology, sources of history, technology, new social and political groups, region and empire, old and new religions, time and historical periods. So let's start with first topic, that is map. When we say map, you may think of class 6th. What is map? What are the components of map? What are the types of map? But here we are going to look at two maps which are related to our Indian subcontinent. And you will find one map is very much familiar to the present map of our Indian subcontinent. So let's now see the detail of the first map. Here you have one terminology, that is cartographer. Means a person who makes map. This is a section of a world map drawn by a geographer known as Al-Idrisi in the year 1154 Common Era. That is in the 12th century, and this is showing the Indian subcontinent. As I said, he was an Arab geographer And here you will see the top side or the upper part is showing the Sri Lankan island, whereas the bottom side is showing our northern part of India. This is in Arabic language and it is written as Kannauj. We will move to second map. This seems to be familiar, at least with the South India. This is after 600 years it was drawn. Again, this is also of the subcontinent from the early 18th century atlas. So this was drawn in 1720 by a French cartographer. You will see the southern coast is showing the detailed places, and you can also see the Kannauj on the northern side. Even you can read the word Mongol in a very clear manner. Now these two maps are totally different, but it gave the world to explore different and distant countries. We will move to second theme, that is new and old terminology. As we saw the map of Indian subcontinent, here also we are going to take the word Hindustan. As we all know, the Turkish and the Iranians around 2500 years ago, they called the eastern part of the Indus River as Hindos or Indus. From that we derived our name. So today when we talk of Hindustan, we understand it as an India, a modern nation state. But in the 13th century, Minhaj-e-Siraz, when he meant the word, he was talking about the areas of Punjab, Haryana and the lands between two rivers, Doab, that is Ganga and Yamuna, as Hindustan. The term never included South India. Same way, when the word Hindustan was used by Babur, the Mughal emperor, the first Mughal emperor or the founder of Mughal emperor in India in the 16th century, he used to describe the geography, the fauna and the culture of the inhabitants of the subcontinent, means the people who were living here. In a similar way, before that, in the 14th century, poet Amir Khusro used the word as Hind. So with the time, the word Hindustan goes on changing. Another example of a foreigner. It is used today to mean someone who is not an Indian, means a person who is coming from outside country. But in the medieval period, a foreigner was any stranger who appeared, say, in a given village, someone who was not a part of that society or culture. In Hindi, we use the term Pardesi, and in Persian language, we use the word as Ajnabi. Suppose we take a forest dweller or a city dweller, they both were foreigner. But a person from same village, without the background of caste or creed, they may be termed as of the same village only. So with these two words, we will move to third theme. This is about sources of the history. Historians, we all know, the scholars who study the past. As we all know, in ancient India, they relied on coins, inscriptions, pots, architects, that is buildings, and textual records for information such as manuscripts. But in medieval period, paper became cheaper and widely available. And most of the wealthy people, rulers, monasteries and temples, they wrote their manuscripts. And these manuscripts were placed in the libraries or archives. So we have second important terminology, that is archive, a place where documents and manuscripts are stored. We still have national archives in New Delhi. So in the coming lessons you will also learn about more sources of history which gave us ample information about this medieval period. We move on to the same. What were the problems faced by the historians? In those days, printing press were not there. So, people used to write by hand. We call them scribes. And they introduced small changes, maybe a word or a sentence there itself. So, these small changes in text grew over centuries and became different from one another. As a result, historians have to read different manuscripts version of the same text to guess what the author had originally written. We can take an example of a student who is absent or maybe he was unable to attend the class. What he do is he copied homework of his friend. If he is unable to understand a word or a sentence, he will simply write his own guesswork. Same way, historians in the 14th century did not know about the chronicler Ziauddin Barni. Means we can say a person who writes accounts of important historical events. So he wrote his first chronicle in 1356 and another version 2 years later. But the historians found the second one first and the first one, that is which was written in 1356 in the year 1960 only, because it was in some of the large libraries. So they did not know about the first part of Ziauddin Barni's writings. So these were the problems. New technologies came into the medieval period. These were the Persian wheel in irrigation, the spinning wheel in weaving, and the firearms in combat. As we all know, ancient Indian history tells us about the discovery of fire and invention of the wheel. The wheel was improved and made into the spinning wheel in weaving and Persian wheel in irrigation to irrigate the crops. We have new crops and beverages. New crops such as potatoes, corn, chilies, and food beverages such as tea and coffee. So you will enjoy, you are still enjoying these same. Next is new social and political groups. Medieval period was a period of great mobility of the people. The people came to India from different parts of world. They settled here. Our subcontinent was ample in resources. It gave them livelihood, and slowly these group of people became important with the time. One of the such important social group was Rajput. Rajput, as a name derived from Rajputra, it also means the son of a ruler. Rajput term is applied in between 8th to 14th centuries to a group of warriors who claimed to be Kshatriya caste status. The term also included rulers, chieftains, soldiers and commanders who served in the armies of different monarchs all over the subcontinent. Later on, other groups of people such as Marathas, Sikhs, Jats, Ahams and Kayas also used the opportunity of the age to become politically important. We all know in the 19th century, most of the social groups formed their different states against Mughal Empire. So they become politically important group. These social groups also changed the habitat. Now habitat this is the third main word we have as in terminology, refers to the environment of a region and the social and economic lifestyle of its residents. As we all know, environment means surroundings of the people, place or things. So these people, wherever they went, they either cleared the forest, they made the land for agriculture, they settled there, they hunted animals, they also did fishing, and with the time and as per their need, they adopted many economic activities and became part of societies. These societies gradually became more differentiated. People were grouped into jatis or subcastes and ranked on the basis of their backgrounds and their occupation. The status of the same jati could vary from area to area. As I said, social differentiation led to the come up of the jatis or different social groups. These jatis framed their own rules and regulations to keep in order their affairs, their daily conduct of their members. They also managed to control with the help of rules and regulations. Mostly the members of the jatis, especially the elders, the experienced and wise elders, became part of Jati Panchayat, and these jatis were also required to follow the rules of their villages. Several villages were governed by chieftains. Together, they were only one small unit of a state. So, as I said, new social groups became politically important. Now, what happened to the region and how this region became an empire? We all know in ancient India, we read about Mauryan dynasty. Dynasty means group of family members of a same family. When they ruled for some years, maybe 100 or more, they become dynasty. We all know Chandragupta, Bindusar and the Ashoka. Likewise, in the southern India, we have Cholas. And these all different dynasties became or they established their empires. So in medieval period, we will learn something about Cholas, Tughlaqs or Mughal empires, which encompassed many regions. A Sanskrit Prashasti praising the Delhi Sultans, Ghayasuddin Balban, explained that he was the ruler of a vast empire. As I said, Cholas were in conflict with the southern rulers. Same way we can find Cher, Chol, Pandya, Pallavas, Rashtrakutas, they all were there as a small. As I said, Ghazni in Afghanistan, in the east, Bengal, and southern India was a part of Ghayasuddin Balban's empire. As I said, these dynasties built their empire and became pan-regional empire, means spanning diverse regions. We all know about Mughal emperors who ruled the major part of India. As they declined in the 18th century, it led to the re-emergence of regional states. But years of imperial pan-regional rule had changed the character of regions, which was apparent in the emergence of many distinct and shared traditions in the realm of governance, the management of the economy, elite cultures and language, old and new religions. In the medieval period, we will learn about Bhakti and Sufi movement. These two movements, Bhakti, that means devotion, came from Hinduism, It was during this period that important changes occurred in what we call Hinduism today. These included the worship of new deities, the construction of temples by royalty, that is rulers. As we all know, Rajrajeshwar Mandir or temple was built by the king. And the growing importance of Brahmanas, we will read about it, about the Chalukyas, the priest as dominant group in a society. Their dominant position was consolidated by the support of their patrons. Patrons is another terminology which will be used in this lesson. Patron means an influenced, wealthy individual who supports another person, an artist, a craftsman, a learned man, or a noble, by giving incentives or by giving gifts. So this is how the new rulers gave patrons and built temples. As I said, one of the major development of this period was the emergence of idea of bhakti. It means devotion, selfless love to the God without expecting anything, give everything. The second important religion was Islam. Migrants and merchants first brought the teachings of Holy Quran to India in the 7th century. Muslims regard the Quran as their holy book and accept the sovereignty of one God, Allah, whose love, mercy and beauty embrace all those who believe in Him without regard to social background. These are all the universal human values. Many rulers were patrons of Islam and ulama, learned theologians and jurists. As I said, patrons exist in Hinduism as well as in Islam. And like Hinduism, Islam was interpreted in a variety of ways by its followers. In this medieval period, we will learn also about the rise of Sikh. We will learn about the Sufi saints. One of the Sufi saints, if you remember, Khwaja Muhyiddin Chishti from Ajmer. Now also he is very famous. Now this is the last point. Now let's talk about the time and historical periods. Time only means seconds, minutes, hours, month, calendar, dates, etc. That is an ordinary imagination. But when we talk of time with the historical perspective, historians see time as reflecting changes in social and economic organizations, in the continuation and transformation of ideas and beliefs. The study of time is made somewhat easier by dividing the past into large segments, that is periods that possesses shared characteristics. When we look at this thought, and if we move further, in the middle of the 19th century, British historians divided the history of India into three parts: Hindu, Muslim and British. The division was based on the idea that the religion of the rulers was the only important historical change and ignored any other significant developments and rich diversity of the subcontinent. It means they have taken the central idea of dividing the rule as only the religion of the rulers. So when we think of Hindu, we also think of the rulers of that time, that is ancient time. And if we look at it, you will come to know, if we talk of Ashoka the Great, he changed his religion. Likewise, many more Indian rulers changed their or adopted to another religion. It doesn't mean that they were having a one religion. Same way, when we talk of second period, that is Muslim, it shows about the Delhi Sultanate, it means Khaljis, Tughlaqs and the Mughal Empire. They all believed in Islam. But as we all know, during that time, emergence of Sikh, the 10th Guru, Guru Gobind Singh, we know the emergence of Marathas in the leadership of the great Shivaji, we know about the Maharana Pratap. So they all ignoring the other significant developments and the rich diversity of the people who were living here. The third period is about British. They ruled India, and that we are going to study in the next class. Moreover, most of the historians did not believe. They believed, as you read in the previous class, a wide range of early societies: hunters, gatherers, herders, farmers, early farmers, herders, and early empire and kingdoms. How we know Janpadas became Mahajanpadas. So they give us a diverse and a wide range of information. The histories you will be studying this year are often described as medieval. You will find more about the points touched in this lesson. You are going to study about maps, terminology, sources of history, technology, new social and political groups, region and empire, old and new religion. So this is what you are going to learn in the coming lessons. With the 18th century, the modern period carries with it a sense of material progress and intellectual advancement. This seems to suggest that the medieval period was lacking in any change whatsoever. But of course, we know this was not the case. We know the base gives us the movement. So anyhow, look out for the changes and continuities wherever you can, and look at the world around you to see what else has changed or remained the same since when. So let me move to another part. Just now we read about new terminology, that is about cartographer, archives, patrons, and with that we also learned about the sub-themes of the lesson. Accordingly, I am asking you a few questions. So my first question is, what is the time period of Indian medieval period? Obviously the answer is well known. We are from the beginning till now. It is from 700 to 1750 AD. Question number 2, who is considered a foreigner in the past? Whenever we think of the question, immediately the answer comes to our mind from the present view. But here, in the past, a foreigner was any stranger who appeared, say, in a given village. Someone who was not a part of that society or culture. You can add two words, Pardesi in Hindi and Ajnabi from a Persian language. Third question, how were the affairs of Jatis regulated? We can introduce the answer. The affairs of Jatis were regulated in following ways. We have three main points. One is Jati Panchayat, another one is governed by chieftains, and they framed their own rules and regulations to manage the conduct of their members. I hope you have got what I said. Before I conclude, thank you very much.